All right, everyone. Welcome to the factory floor. I am joined by my beautiful Vanna White style compatriots. We have Corey, Jonathan, Franklin, Haynes. Corey, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Okay, sweet. Pretty lackluster pregame interview, by the way. You're supposed to be
Me?
like hyped about it. Yeah.
I think I just used all my energy talking about my travel horror story.
Yeah, our warm up discussion. Got it. Okay, well, we'll move on. And then we also have, of course, Zach Stevens. Zachary, how are you? Are you ready for the game today?
I'm just stoked to be here. Our team's going to play great. I'm going to give it 110%. And, whoever's on the other side of me better watch out because I'm playing for keeps and I'm not leaving anything on the table. There's nothing that's going to be left out for this. I'm just kind of upset. Or I'm not upset, actually. I'm really glad that I don't have as many middle names as Corey does because you
Yeah,
actually missed a couple. You had Franklin, but you missed Bartholomew,
yeah.
um, Reginald,
Ulysses.
You,
Ulysses.
you
Yeah.
get one after every podcast, so every single one you're gonna have
Mm,
like that many middle names. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate
Well,
you, Zach. Sounds
and
like you've been in the lab just cooking, getting ready for the game.
you actually left out his title as well. It's Esquire,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
I forgot.
the
You're a
third.
lawyer. You know,
Don't forget the
Esquire's
third,
for lawyers, right?
of course.
Okay, I didn't know that until I had a friend that became a lawyer. But anyway, okay, we are going to keep this podcast a little short and sweet. But yeah, it's going to be great. This week or this episode um, was the topic of discussion was selected by our very own Zach Stevens, and I don't know much about it, so I'm going to let him take over. Basically, the one phrase is that creative direction is the last moat. My assumption is this is in regards to AI, but
hmm
I don't
Yeah.
know. So I'm going to let Zach tell us what's up.
Yeah. So this is uh, the starting point for this was a post by Mr. R.J. Abbott. He's the founder of Neighborhood Cult and a creative polymath who I am not connected with on LinkedIn, but maybe I will be after this. Anyway, someone I know liked his post, and it was a PSA to tech founders and VCs saying that the creative director is now the most underrated hire in tech. And the reason for that is because everything with respect to creativity, building a brand, emotional loyalty is all being outsourced now to AI, if not being expedited and commoditized at a rate that we've never seen before. So the only thing that is standing between you and being a commoditized offer that now is avoiding a race to the bottom with your pricing and commanding premium offers is that creative director and that person who is able to establish an emotional connection and steward all of the creative assets that make people love your brand, not just see it as something valuable, but love it and appreciate it and want to stick around and see it as more valuable than maybe even you do. Is that a good starting point?
I think so. Yeah, I have an immediate question.
Yes.
Um, okay, so I don't come from the creative world. I would consider myself a non-creative. Um, in my head, okay, don't take offense to this. The creative director is a little ethereal, a little like loosey good. It's kind of like a musician, right? Like, are they going to show up for rehearsal on time? What are they going to say? Is what they say going to feel like, what? What did you say? What are we trying to do? That in my mind is a creative director. And oftentimes when I think like, if I met someone and they were like, hey, my name's, Frederick and I'm a creative director, I'd be like, you don't have a job. That would be my first thought. And the reason for that is because it's a very like, it's not a set in stone feeling title. Um, can you either help me see the light or confirm some of the thoughts I have and like show me the other side of the coin, maybe?
Yeah, well, I think that it depends on, you have to understand what this person's job is, and actually when they do a good job at it, what does that look like? The best way that I can characterize it is it's stewardship over the words and visuals that tell the story of your brand and keep that story consistent so you don't have these veering tangential plot lines within your user journey, or just like the progression of your brand as it evolves and taps into new markets, etc. It is their job to maintain the personality and essentially the brand. Like that is their job, is to maintain that loyalty and the emotional connection. And then also understanding, well, where can we flex? What strategic decisions do we make? That because everything that they would oversee has trickle down effect throughout an organization. Creative touches the product, creative touches the marketing, creative touches sales, creative touches. I mean, you can even like this is brand and positioning tie into each other at the foundational root of your marketing strategy. And they don't, it's not like one comes after the other. They are both at the bottom working to not only venture into new arenas and markets within your vertical or your market, but then also make sure that it's going to be okay to do that. It's like a push pull, like a yin and yang at the base of your marketing efforts. And when you have a creative director that doesn't understand positioning, that doesn't understand business, that's when you run into problems. So their job is to steward all of that and do so in the context of, we're still growing a business. It's not just expression and art, but I'm doing this in an effort to maintain the humanity of especially in our realm, of a digital product.
Corey, did you, when I say like, or when I was making my claim about the creative director, right? Like, you're also like a non-creative, right? Like Zach is the creative one. We're the other guys. Did you
Corey's super
have like the
creative.
same thing okay, yeah, but not like you. Did you have like
Oh
the
no,
same
I had the same
thought?
thought. Yeah,
Okay.
100%. It's like anytime I've met a art director or a creative director, specifically at like an agency, they're usually, they're wearing a denim jacket. They have really nice hair. They sort of
Circular
speak in a
glasses.
different language. Yeah, they have circular metal, thin rimmed glasses. Um, they're sort of like speaking a different language where you're like, whoa, I don't really know what you're saying, but it sounds cool. And it's hard to like grasp what they do. I think I've come to appreciate it more because then I started working with agencies and then I started learning more about, brands and branding and the whole process and gobbledygook that goes into it. Um, so actually, even when I read the title of what Zach proposed, I was like, huh, I wonder what that means. But then as soon as he said, like, you need a creative director to be the steward of all these things, it immediately clicked because it's true. Like, you need someone with really, really good taste so that everything doesn't just like go off the rails or become super stale or mediocre.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess they're also really good. Like a good creative director, the person who I always think of is not the person in like a denim jacket or, with colored hair or, that is a little bit more faddish with the way that they present themselves. The person I think of is Don Draper from Mad Men.
Oh,
Like that is when I think of creative director, that's who I think of. And the reason I think of him is because he's a perfect example. One of my favorite things about that show is he's a very good orator of telling really good stories, but he always ties it back into like, well, you're number 4 in your vertical, and you are going to reject the things that I'm saying in an effort to keep being that way. And that's not something I'm interested in. If you want to be number 1, then we should continue talking. So not only for his dealings with clients, but his respect for business and art as a joint effort to make business better. And I think to make art better, actually. Like my favorite art is design stuff for business. Like this website is beautiful and it conveys a message and makes you want to buy. This product is beautiful and it is delightful to use. That's art and business working together. And when creative does its job really well, then it adds a tremendous amount of value because it's delight on top of utilitarianism and functionality. So I think of him because he's not as aloof or, crazy. He's very methodical and pragmatic. He's actually also the only person, if you watch the entire series, everyone else in that agency changes with the trends of the time. I think it starts in the 60s and then ends in the late 70s, and there's a lot of fashion trends, or maybe it's late 50s up until the early 70s, and there's a lot of fashion trends that emerge. Like some of the guys in the agency like start getting sideburns and like keep up with like the 70s haircuts. You see the women change in their clothing styles. He's actually the only one who doesn't change at all. Like his suits don't change, his hairstyle doesn't change. He's consistent all the way through. So I think that another side of him that I think I respect and why I think of him when I think of creative direction is his systemization and authenticity. Like I'm not deviating to follow a fad. I am sticking true to what I know is timeless and is going to work.
I think that given that Corey and I both like have the same person in our brain, it's obvious that creative directors need to rebrand.
They need a new creative direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, when you were talking, Corey, it had me thinking like about um, maybe a better way to think about this person and less of like the person that we were picturing in our head is like a video game, like a video game director. Like, you're the new, say you're a director of, this project of building this game, and there's
The new Elder Scrolls.
Yeah. Uh, let's go with something that I might understand better, like let's say Call of Duty. Okay,
Sure.
and you have a team that works on the campaign. You have a team that works on the multiplayer. You have a team that works on like the horde mode, whatever that is. Um, but your job is, because those teams don't really touch one another. They don't like interact in the same way. They're just focused on their project. But you see from the top, and your job is to make sure that there's a through line through all of it, that all of it connects correctly, that all of the weapons or the, loadouts or whatever are all balanced and make sense based on each of the other ones in the context that they don't all have, and that the visuals all match. Like they're kind of like seeing everything and watching the teams make sure that it all lines up together. Is that a better understanding maybe of what this person does?
You're such a fucking nerd.
God, let's go, dude. He said Elder Scrolls. I feel like Call of Duty is much more every man.
It's more like it's more the way that you described it. You're like, the loadouts have to be this way. And
Okay,
like
show of hands. Who's played Call of
Look,
Duty?
Okay,
There we
you
go.
got me. But
Got you.
I'm like the filter by which you had to communicate this was through Call of Duty.
Yeah, dude. That's the only thing I
I love you.
understand. Yeah.
I love you for it. And you're right. That is the key. It's the through line. Can the narrator, the person who is going to keep the story going the way that it's supposed to, make sure that it doesn't deviate, or if it does deviate, it's going to be a surprise in a good way, not a why did we do that? It's not going to be in a season 7 of Game of Thrones where all of a sudden you're like, none of this makes sense. This is all wrong. I mean, I think that there's a major correlation between deviation from story that you see like with Hollywood or in a book, and what happens with brands, where it's like if you deviate from who people expect you to be, or in a way that is disappointing, then they will never forgive you for it, and it will burn like no forest fire you've ever seen.
Yeah. I have 2 follow-up questions for Zach. Kind of unrelated, but maybe related, more related than I think. One is, like what are the practical bits of stewarding brand in creative direction? Like how would that show up for a SaaS founder, for example, or just anyone who's working in a SaaS business? And that's kind of like part 2 of my question is, who is the de facto creative director? Do you need a creative director, or can you be a creative director as the CEO or CMO or CTO or chief design officer,
CPO or anything like that?
CPO, so on and so forth.
Okay, so first question is what goes into it? I think that their job is to first just assess the story, because no founder, like seldom do they think about the story in the context of how it relates to their users and then the totality of their journey. Like, are you planning on acquiring other companies? If so, how do they relate to your brand portfolio and your architecture? Do they tell help tell the story better? Do they add to it? Or are they a really like a substantial departure? Because we need to think about that. Like, and I could create or direct those things too, but should they be different movies, like, or just different like tangential stories that don't really connect in a specific way? So their job is to set up the systems in place, like the foundational elements. Give us the Lego pieces to work with as far as voice and tone. Give us the identity that we can work with and flex. Let us know when it's okay to flex. Let us know when we're off the rails. That's not necessarily something that I think that you can create. Like, you can create style guides for them, but style guides, in my opinion, they're a little bit harder to follow, simply because there's so many different mediums that you have to approach, and things change. Like a style guide that was made 10 years ago is not going to be as relevant anymore because the media landscape has just changed. So I think it's their job to communicate what that story is, and then to know and tell people, no, you're deviating from the story. So nuts and or bits and pieces, it's laying the foundational pieces around visuals, around voice, and then making sure that those are implemented in a tasteful way that honors the brand and makes it engaging. Is that sufficient, or have I left any holes?
Insufficient.
No, no. Yeah, I think mostly sufficient, but I think, for example, let's just take me, for example. I'm working on a SaaS product, right? And I'm putting together a website. I'm going to have to like come up with not only just like, the typography and the kind of color scheme and color palette, but also like the graphics. And is it more like whimsical, or is it more serious? Is it like, does it look very futuristic? Those are the types of things, right, you're thinking of. And then how that translates to the product, use of animations. Trying to think like, what are all the things that you might have to account for? I don't know if that's relevant, but
No, well, I think it is. I mean, anything that this is the great part about creative direction is I don't think that there's anything that doesn't touch. Like, there between marketing, what is marketing? It's words and visuals primarily. All of that has to at least be directionally aligned with the emotional value that you're bringing. Something like a, hey, you forgot your password email. Are you going to spend a lot of time on that creatively? You could, if you have the time and capacity, and it'd be really nice to have something fun to circumvent or at least to pair with an annoying thing, like I forgot my password, but you're probably not going to. Uh, but essentially anything that you can put your eyes on or that your ears interact with, even smells, like depending on if you have an office, like, well, what kind of aromas do you have in here? What kind of music are you playing? If you want to have like a through and through brand, like all of that is going to get touched because it's all part of telling the story. Like, it's the setting for all of it. So it will touch the product. It will touch marketing. It will touch sales. It will touch nuts and bolts of retention emails and your series and your social posts and your ads. And I mean, there's just nothing it doesn't touch. Your packaging. If it's imagine if you had to actually download a software or like install it the way we used to, it would touch the packaging as well.
It seems like. Sorry, did you have something? Did I cut you
Well,
off?
I was just gonna answer part 2 of Corey's question, which is who is then responsible for it if like comes into play. But you can ask your question first because I don't want you to forget it.
My thought is this. It seems like a really big lift to convince tech founders that their creative director hire is more important than their CTO or, the head of product. Like that the creative director is more important than, or that person is going to play a more foundational role than the person in charge of like the product, for example. Like that to me seems like a big ask. They'll probably be like, it doesn't matter if the product sucks. So that product has like that person's definitely more important. That's what my brain goes to. Do you think that people think that way? Does it like we need to convince them? Like, where do you stand on it?
Well, that's not the question. The question is it's that creative direction is the moat. It's the final thing that is going to make your brand different from everybody else. Because the problem with all the AI stuff, particularly in the realm of like a technical founder, is that that is going to become way more commoditized than a creative director. Like the amount of people now who are going to know how to code or like get to the point where they could help ship a product, even if they're a prompt engineer or really good at using AI developer tools, that is programmatic stuff where you have it's what's the phrase that you use, Corey? Deterministic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Deterministic.
yeah, it's deterministic, where you should have very clear outputs for very clear inputs, at least as far as functionality goes. Having all that work together and then making it beautiful on top of that, I think that that would fall under the role, like that's something a creative director would handle. Uh, and that's just harder to find. Like someone who has taste, but then also a sense of business strategy, like, and can marry those two together. I think that that's going to become rare, especially because, well, even with like just attention deficits in the newer generations who are going to be dependent on all this AI stuff. It's like, well, where's the person who doesn't just throw in prompts willy nilly and like pretend like they're going to just create a hodgepodge of random stuff that doesn't cohere. You
Uh,
need somebody who's able to refine and cohere everything.
okay, because that was I guess my follow up is like the the person that we're describing as like the ideal creative director is a rare person. Like you, for example, there aren't that many creative people that are like you. Like you
What?
have a ton of just you have a ton of creative ability, but you are incredibly administrative. You are very business savvy. You're focused on like the like okay, you have your lane, but you care about the other lanes. How are the other lanes like performing and working? I know a lot of creative people. Not very many of them are like you. I think I have maybe one or two more friends who are incredibly creative, but also like very administrative. Out of, if I know like 50 creative people, maybe three of them are the way you are. So like, this seems like a rare person to find, which I think is probably the biggest issue in the discussion. Like,
Yeah.
how do people find those people? Get lucky.
How do you
Um,
become more that person?
Oh,
what's
that's an
that?
even better question.
I
Or
said,
how
or
can
how
they
do you
become?
become more that person?
How'd you do it?
uh, well, I guess this could tie into Corey's question of who
Yeah.
would it then be a de facto to? Well, I think it comes down to it's a learned skill, taste, um, and I feel like you get it by just a lot of trial and error. There's this video from Ira Glass, who is the podcast host of This American Life. It's called The Gap, and I think Corey, you've seen it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, once or twice.
So the whole premise of The Gap is that you can identify like what is really good work. Like your taste is killer. That's the thing that gets you into the game. But you know that you're not there yet. Like you can tell that there's a difference between your work and your output and the output that you want to be at. And the only way to get through that gap is to just do a shit ton of work. Like
Mhm.
uh, and practice, and that might be something that's like just endless prompting until you get it to the point where it's like, oh, now I understand what I need to say to go into this and to do so in an effective way. Um, it's like it's easier for someone who comes from the design realm, I think, because there's more like art history involved and technical terminology for making things look the way you want them to. Uh, or like when I talk to a web team, I can say things like, no, the padding isn't right on this, or this should be an absolute position. This should be a flex box. I have that technical terminology to communicate things and help change and alter them. Uh, but it is a learned skill. And the key thing is you just have to understand that maybe you're not as good as you want to be now, but if you can point out what is really good work and then point out why it's better, that's what the difference is. The last thing, which I think is more of a personal a personal take, is appreciation for story, which I think is highly underrated and undervalued. If you are somebody who sits through a garbage movie for the full 2 hours and doesn't like want to claw your eyes out by the end of it and think, my God, why did I just waste so much time doing this? I never want to do it again. Like I did, where I took a vow and said, I'm never going to watch anything that doesn't capture my attention after 15 minutes. I'm just going to turn it off because it's a waste of time. Having that kind of reverence for story is really important, because then you will understand and appreciate the biggest thing for humanity, which is telling stories. And then you'll be able to understand what makes a good story, what makes a bad story. And that story and knowledge of how to work it is what's going to make you a really good creative director.
Put it on a poster, dude. Okay, the very last
Bars.
question is what movie made you make that vow?
It was Kong versus Godzilla, the new
Dude,
one.
Interesting.
come on, the story of our time. What are you talking about? I'm just
It
kidding.
was horrible.
Yeah,
It was
I haven't seen
so.
it.
So here's why. The last movie that I saw before COVID was 1917,
Great
the
movie.
World War One movie, which is
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic,
So
blow
good.
away. Cinematically, the story's fantastic, just through and through, a fantastic movie. And then COVID hits, and I don't go see movies for like a year, like actually in the theaters. So, like summer 2021 rolls around, and I'm like, dude, I'm freaking itching to, like, I want to go eat popcorn and watch a movie all the way through. And so nothing really good was out at the time. A couple buddies of mine went to go see Kong versus Godzilla, and like half an hour in, I was like, this kind of sucks. Like, it's not a good movie. And then we get to, I'm waiting for it to get better, and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I'm still waiting because it never got better. Um, and then I realized when we got out of the theater, it's like, I just spent 2 hours, 2.5 hours watching a horrible, horrible movie. And I feel really bad about it. So I'm never going to do that again. And
Buyer's
this actually,
remorse.
I tell you, I have walked out of movie theaters and stopped movies. Like my wife and I went to go see Napoleon, the movie, the Ridley Scott movie with Joaquin Phoenix, and we walked out. It's like, this isn't good. It's got a bad story and
Haven't seen it.
horrible dialogue. If you're trying to compare it to Gladiator, don't, because you'll be very disappointed.
No, not even close
do
at
that.
all. There's one fun thought is I just thought that there was maybe an interesting connection and parallel to Hollywood, because it feels like the last like 10 to 15 years, people have really lost the excitement of a lot of movies, and they're really visually flashy, but like you said, they're missing the story element. And I wonder if a lot of that was kind of tied to the breakthroughs in CGI and just being able to use, computer generated graphics and effects in movies. And then that sort of like took the show. We had movies like Transformers where it was sort of like mind blowing the first time that you saw it. And then everyone starts to like overemphasize just the use of effects and sort of making every movie into an action movie. And I wonder if AI has a similar kind of life cycle where it'll be like, oh, now I can make all these things, or like all these things can be generated quickly and like decently well, but then people start to feel burned over time because they're like, but this doesn't really work that well. This isn't really a good product. This doesn't really
Or I don't
solve
connect with
my
it because
needs.
the story isn't there.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
really have an affinity for this product.
Or music too. Music kind of went through is going through the same kind of cycle where there's a overproduction, I think would be the best way of characterizing it, and lack of taste. So it's a bad combo of the ability to like your output is just a lot more voluminous, but the taste and care isn't. So that's unfortunate. I mean, the best movie ever, or according to IMDb, at least last time I checked, is still The Shawshank Redemption, which is like zero special effects whatsoever. Phenomenal story.
I wonder if there is any. I'm like, is there any special effects in that movie? I don't think so.
No.
It'd be funny if we
Well,
found something.
unless not CGI.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, just like practical
There's
effects. Yeah.
no, there's zero CGI in that movie.
Yeah.
I will bet on that there's zero
Ooh,
CGI in that movie.
I gotta watch it. I'll be like glued to the
or
TV. I love that movie,
or
but
like or there's things like Jurassic Park where there's a limited amount of CGI, and I think that's like you hit that like the perfect medium of like we're
Mhm.
going to use CGI but do it very very sparingly and focus on the story. Lord of the Rings is another really good example, particularly the uh like just the main trilogy, and you look at that compared to The Hobbit. The Hobbit has shit tons of CGI,
Yeah,
and
way too much.
it's
hate
it
it.
it doesn't hold up. Like the Uruk-hai in
Mhm.
Fellowship of the Ring are way more intimidating than any CGI work, like
Mhm.
hands
Oh,
down.
it
But it's
drives me
because like
crazy. I
and it
can't watch The
well,
Hobbit because of it.
and I'm sure it was annoying, like having to get into makeup and do all that stuff, but it kept the story alive. Like it made the story worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. We could probably talk for a lot longer about this. But anyway, we're gonna wrap it up. Appreciate you guys. Great discussion. Very interesting. And we will see you all on the next one. Bye bye.